Hello, I'm Alan Clague, Latin Subject Officer for WJEC Eduqas. I've been Subject Officer since the inception of our very successful Level 1 and Level 2 certificates in 2009. Before that, I was Head of Classics at a large comprehensive school in Wiltshire, and I also taught at an independent school in Oxford. So I'd now like to introduce some aspects of our new GCSE. Eduqas is the brand that WJEC is using to delineate the new GCSEs and A-levels for schools in England. I hope you will find, when looking at our specification and sample assessment materials, that the routes through are clear and that the materials are of a high standard and provide stretch and challenge for all. In our development of our Latin GCSE specification, we had to work within the guidelines of the specified content and structure laid down by the Department for Education and Ofqual. We would like to claim that within these constraints we've produced papers that will provide clear and reliable assessment. We are always conscious of the criticism put forward by some people that Latin is an elitist subject suitable only for the more able, and have endeavoured to provide an assessment that will be approachable for the whole ability range. We're offering CPD courses in various areas of the country, led by the examiners who put together the specification and by experienced teachers and teacher trainers. In fact, 2 of our principal examiners have at least 20 years' experience each of senior examining at this level. And my support officer, Matt Oatley, and I take pride in responding quickly to telephone and email correspondence from teachers. Those teachers who use our current Level 1 and Level 2 certificates will be aware of the very stimulating and extensive support materials for both teachers and learners provided by the Cambridge Schools Classics project. I'm very pleased to say that the project, led by Will Griffiths, has committed itself to the same level of support for the GCSE. A somewhat different belief system concerning the assessment of Latin has allowed us to come up with some features that will clearly differentiate our offering. We believe that Latin literature should be read within some understanding of the wider society that produced it and consumed it. Thus, we have prescribed some non-literary ancient source material alongside the literary prescription. The assessment of literature will also be open book. For those unfamiliar with this term, it means that, in the examination, the candidate has access to a pristine copy of the whole prescription and associated vocabulary, taking away some of the anxiety learners often feel and allowing for questions that can be more wide-ranging and more searching. We are proud of the fact that our Latin GCSE was the first in any subject at any level to be accredited by Ofqual for first teaching in September 2016. Please note that components 3A and 3B are options against each other. Details of all the components follow on the next slides. Component 1 accounts for 50% of the GCSE. All of the Latin into English element, which is 90% of this component, is in the form of a continuous narrative, usually based, loosely it must be said, on a mythological or historical original, with both translation and comprehension. The specification gives the prescribed items of grammar and syntax, which are much in line with the current GCSE and our Level 2, and a defined vocabulary list of about 440 words. The remaining 10% of this component is shown in the last bullet point. This is the compulsory literature component, accounting for 30% of the GCSE. As this is the only Latin literature in the original language that the majority of students will ever encounter, we decided that it made sense that they should experience a range of authors writing in both prose and verse and linked by a theme. An example of the theme is given in Bullet 1. There will always be a choice of 2 themes, and each prescription will be available for 3 years. All the material for this component, that is the text and vocabulary, can be downloaded from the Eduqas website, and there'll be no need to purchase sets of textbooks. A small set of non-literary source items, for example mosaics, statues, photographs of archaeological sites, will help to put the theme in context. There will be some small assessment of this material. Component 3A is optional and accounts for 20% of the GCSE. It's based on a narrative with a choice of prose or verse of about 85 to 90 lines of Latin and roughly the same amount in an English translation. This extra material allows for a coherent storyline to be covered. Because the amount of Latin to be read is limited, the prescription is available for 2 sessions. As with the previous component 2, the need to target the assessment objectives inevitably generates a range of question types, from the simple 1-mark factual question to 12 or 16-mark mini essays requiring understanding and evaluation. Component 3B is also optional with 20% of the GCSE. This component is very similar to our current Level 2 Roman Civilization unit, although we now give more detailed indication of the areas of study. There are no prescribed source materials, although a large selection of such materials will be available on the website. Again, the assessment objectives will generate a range of question types. All of Assessment Objective 1 is targeted at Component 1. The challenge for the question setters and for teachers is to get the balance right between the knowledge and understanding of Assessment Objective 2 and the analysis and evaluation of Assessment Objective 3. You'll see that in Components 2 and 3 there is equal weighting to AO2 and AO3. Please take a look at the 125 pages of sample assessment materials on the Eduqas website. You'll see that the literature content for Components 2 and 3A in the sample assessment material is not the same as that prescribed for 2018 to 2020. As our accreditation came through only in September, the support resources are still being developed, but will be available well in advance of the start of teaching in September 2016. In future, the secure website will contain, inter alia, past papers and mark schemes. Teachers will need to liaise with their exam supervisor to gain access to this site. The exam results analysis for the language component, Component 1, would allow teachers to investigate whether there is any significant difference between their students' performance on the translation element as opposed to the comprehension element. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. If you have any comments on what you've heard, please email me. The address is on the website.